Center and head your way ASAP.
Wahoo. What's a wahoo? Where's Dennis? Is he gonna walk me? Or is he a rebel? Huh. I have a shuttle to catch.
We're being invaded by Imperial forces. So, how's it going, guys?
It's going good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hot day.
Are you here to arrest me?
That depends. Who are you loyal to?
I'm aligned with the rebel forces here, I think.
That's going to be an issue.
It's going to be a little bit of an issue today, I think. So we are here with members of the 501st Legion,
Correct. Yes, sir.
right? Everglades squad.
Yes, sir. So I'm TB 14056. It's my TKID. We'll get into that a bit later.
Okay.
And I am the squad leader for Everglades Squad. Everglades Squad covers all of South Florida. I oversee all our operations as far as event coordination goes, our relationship with Lucasfilm, and the various venues we visit, such as the hospitals and libraries, which we'll also talk a bit more about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
I'll let...
Sure. My name is TK61601. I'm Thomas Hagen. I joined back in June, so my 1-year anniversary is coming up here. I'm just a member, but I've enjoyed it a lot. We do a lot of great things, as Eric here is going to cover on. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is, so we're going to get first of all, I want to welcome you guys to Connected by Water, presented by Joey Carty Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. And I want to thank you guys for coming up. I want to thank you guys for coming here so early and getting ready like this. You know, really does mean a lot that you guys got all dressed up in your attire and your gear. And I'm going to call it gear. It's not even attire. I mean, this is like some serious stuff that you guys have going on here. And you know, we have a mutual friend in Howard that, you know, really kind of exposed me to everything that you guys do. And it's cool, man. Like just the level that you guys take this to. So, you know, do you want to? How long do you want to stand in the corner there? Do you want to do it for a little while, or you want to sit, or you want to kind of get out of that as soon as you can? So
Maybe for another 5 minutes or so.
all right, cool.
Yeah.
Then we'll work on that. So as you know, this is a very casual atmosphere show. So let your hair down and let loose. Tell us your life story. So tell me a little bit about, like, just to get started, so people know right off the bat, what's your organization like all about? What's the complete name? Like, introduce yourself.
Sure. So, as I was saying, the Everglades Squad is a unit of the 501st Legion. The 501st Legion is a Category 501, Category 7 nonprofit social club. Mm-hmm. We're an international organization operating in about 67 countries. As of yesterday's date, we have about 14,090 members in those 67 countries.
14,000?
Correct.
Wow.
Yes. Our unit is organized into garrisons and squads, and I'll explain the intricacies of that a bit later if it comes about. But for Everglades Squad, all you need to know is we're a part of the Florida Garrison, which is the statewide. There's 4 squads in Florida. You got the Tampa Bay Squad on the West Central. You got McCausey in East Central. In the Northeast, you have Squad 7. Mm-hmm. In the Panhandle, you have Parjai, and in South Florida, you have Everglades Squad. So Everglades Squad in particular has 97 active members in its service, which means our members, to stay active, need to troop once a year, which is coming to an event like this in costume. But otherwise, yeah, we are, as a nonprofit, we attend all of our events for free. We never charge for any of our events. We attend both private and public events. Mm-hmm. For private events, one of our missions is to contribute, and we contribute to a variety of causes by encouraging donations from private event organizers to a charity of their choosing in our name in lieu of any sort of payment. And for public events like fundraising walks, charity galas, what have you, we just support our presence and try to raise awareness and use the brand recognition of Star Wars to contribute to those funds indirectly.
That's really cool, you know. And I've been to one of your events before that you guys held here in town. I can't remember what the event was, but I sure as heck remember you guys being there. And you know, you had everyone, like, Darth Vader, and I think someone was, is Kylo Ren, and all the characters from Star Wars. And you guys are people within your organization assigned to a certain character, like I'm a Scout Trooper, or I'm a Stormtrooper, or I'm Darth Vader. Like, you have people assigned to those characters, or
No, sir. So the 501st, being a nonprofit, all of its members are volunteer, including the leadership. There are no paid positions, and as volunteers, our members retain all the rights to choose what costume they want to wear, what events they want to attend. The stipulations with costumes is that depending on what costume they choose, they have to reference what's called a costume reference library. And those are available to the public online. For example, the Scout Trooper. There are a couple different versions, but mine is the one you see in 1983, Return of the Jedi. So if you were to search Scout Trooper, CRL, Return of the Jedi, or ROTJ, it'd be one of the first internet results. And the way that works is if a member wants to do a costume, they go to the CRL, and what the CRL is a costume reference library. So it consists of photos and text descriptions of the costume and all its parts. So for instance, at the very top of the page, you'll have a photo of the costume, what it should look like, and then for the rest of the page, it'll be a breakdown of each item, the helmet, the forearm guard, the jumpsuit, and it'll have all the criteria of what it should look like with both pictures and text.
now are you guys making your own suits and putting that into the library? I mean, you can only access the library, obviously, if you're a member of...
No. So it's available publicly. So if you go on any internet browser, you just type the costume name, and then pretty much the letters CRL. It'll be one of the first results. Aspiring members are to reference that when they build their costumes.
Okay.
So it's not mandated or mandatory that you build your costume. It can be a combination of commissions and building, depending on your skill level. For Boba Fett here, this is one of the other costumes that I do. That one for me was a mix of commissioning other artists and building it myself, rather modifying pieces I had achieved.
For this helmet here?
For the helmet and the entire costume.
Okay. So what did you build and what did you commission on this?
So for the helmet for Boba Fett is very intricate. Of all the costumes in the 501st,
This has always been my favorite character.
no, me too.
Yeah.
It's probably one of easily the most expensive and complicated ones. For a Boba Fett ESB, Empire Strikes Back, you're probably looking at $5,000 to $6,000. For Boba Fett, the helmet I had nothing to do with that in the way of assembling it. But other pieces like the gauntlets, his things that he wears, fires the rockets from, and whipcords, those were given to me, already painted, and then I modified it by, for instance, moving the flame unit, the flamethrower on his wrist up a little bit. And so, regardless of whatever costume, Boba Fett, Scout Trooper, once the member finishes it or receives it from a commissioner or artist, you submit it to what's called a Garrison Membership Liaison, and they review photos and compare it to the CRL and movie shots of the character to make sure that it's accurate enough to represent Lucasfilm's intellectual property.
Gotcha. So you guys are really going for authenticity.
Correct. Yeah. We try not to... we have various levels. So for basic membership, we try to keep it pretty lenient. We want to... One of the purposes of our organization, there are three. One, as I mentioned earlier, is to contribute to charity, a variety of causes. The other is to facilitate the use of costumes, and the other is to promote interest in Star Wars. Well, obviously, to do that last one, to promote interest in Star Wars, we don't want to be too selective,
right?
When we can, but at the
that
same
makes
time,
sense. I mean, you don't want to alienate people, or be like that guy. Like,
not at all.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about it more later. But all of our local members are always enthusiastic about helping new members because we realize it's intimidating, it's complicated.
So you said you're in that level of just kind of starting out, right? Or like you've been here for like a year with the
my
organization.
1 year anniversary is coming up.
So did you build all that yourself? Or?
All by myself, yeah.
Really? Good job.
It comes in a plastic kit.
Okay.
Untrimmed, you got to cut everything out. You got to glue, you got to sand.
Okay.
You got to fit. And it's actually really fun. It took me around 3 months to make. But that's only because obviously I had a lot of time on my hands, like most of us do right now. But on average, I would say this could take around 6 to 8 months to make.
Really, that long? Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of looking at reference images from the original film. This is the Amh Stormtrooper, the ones that a majority of the Stormtroopers wore.
Right.
Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford actually wore a different version of this armor.
When they went into the trash compactor?
When they went into the trash compactor, correct. This is called the stunt version.
Okay.
And it was a fun project, in all honesty. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, no, it looks outstanding. Like I'm highly impressed by what you guys have on, and and even the stuff that Howard has always showed me in the past. For those of you that don't know, I'll give you a little background on Howard. When I moved into this building day one, this guy walks into my studio, which was down this much smaller studio down the hall. Now we've expanded since. And Howard walks in wearing a Nirvana t-shirt, and he goes, "Hey, I'm Howard. I'm your lawyer." Like that. And honestly, he's been my lawyer ever since. I'm like, I looked at his shirt. I'm like, Nirvana? Yeah, you're my lawyer. That's for sure. Anyway, so then I start getting in, he starts telling me about all this stuff. He's involved with the 501, and he starts showing me all these pictures. And, Howard's always bringing stuff into his office and, showing it off. And I was always amazed at how authentic to what lengths that you guys will take this, like with the guns, for example. Now, some of them are actual guns from the set, and some of them are actual replicas that you guys have made to a T. So take me through some of the stuff you guys do with the weapons.
Sure. So I guess with the weapons and props, with any piece of thing that we make, the reason we keep it so authentic is for the sake of our relationship with Lucasfilm. Mm-hmm. We're not in any way sponsored.
What is your relationship, with Lucasfilm?
We're not in any way sponsored or affiliated. It's, moreover, it's like a liaison relationship, if I could describe it as such. So, for instance, they'll invite us to many of their licensed events. Mm-hmm. I guess the example that comes to mind is recently, back in November, they launched a Star Wars line, and Lucasfilm asked us to go to the Coach stores and, under their license, market that launch.
Okay.
So Lucasfilm will use us for events, and because of that, that's why we hold ourselves to such high accuracy standards.
Right.
Is because
I can imagine, that's pretty influential to how you guys do all that.
Back in 2014, 2015, when they had Star Wars weekends at Hollywood Studios, we were their cast members. Mm-hmm. We weren't actually working for Disney or paid. We were just the group that they invited in to populate Hollywood Studios with the characters for those weekends.
So you guys are the ones doing the parades?
Yes, we used to be. Star Wars weekends stopped, I think, in 2016.
Right.
So since then, we've not been doing the parades.
All right, so those are you want to?
Sure, I'll hop
You want
out
to
real
take the
quick.
break? All right, so we're going to take a break here, and we're going to let you change because I know that's tough for you to stand there in the corner with all that on, and then we'll be right back. All right, so we are back from our break. Thomas, thank you so much for putting all that Stormtrooper gear on and showing that to our audience and being able to. I love the fact that you should be proud of what you built on that one. And Eric, thanks for staying in gear.
Yeah, no problem.
And I guess that one's a little bit tough to sit down in, right?
Impossible, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The butt plate, the posterior plate, it's like makes it impossible to sit down.
Okay. It
Yeah.
has a butt plate.
Yes, it does have a butt plate.
On the last podcast, I invented something called the butt pouch, which was for bicycles, but that's another story. So where we left off before, I just want everyone to say hi to the Ewok. I love Ewoks, right? And my son Sean and my daughter Sienna, they love Ewoks too. So I just want to say, here's the Ewok.
Yeah.
We were talking about weapons.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I cut you off, and you want to kind of get into that?
Yeah, so I just touch on it real briefly. So your question was basically, how do we go about building and researching the weapons? And it's the same as any costume part, like I said. So for the props, obviously one thing we want to strive for is that they're non-functional. Mm-hmm. A lot of our events, some schools nowadays, understandably, rather us not bring it. But for the events that do, we still want to make sure that they're non-functional, which is really the only thing that differentiates them from any other costume part. Most of what Lucas drew from, for the original trilogy anyways, was World War II and early 20th century influences.
Yep.
So as I think you mentioned earlier in the podcast, some will be deactivated weapons from that era. Others will be entirely rubber cast and were never functional.
Like what weapons from that era? Do you know?
Sure, yeah. So, okay, for A New Hope.
I didn't know that was the World War II was the influence for the weapons.
It's actually an influence for a lot of it. When you think about it, the Empire does parallel Nazi Germany.
Yeah, that kind of
So-
I grasped, but
So Darth Vader's helmet, the back of it, kind of the part that goes over the face mask, if you will, is based off of a Stalin helm, which was the German helmet of World War II. Also, the DLT-19, which is one of the longer rifles the stormtroopers carry in that movie, is based off the MG-34 with some modifications. The E-11 here is,
Sterling submachine gun.
yes,
In
correct.
fact, if you want to look at this real quick, it's
see that
cast
thing.
from the original weapon. If you look under there, it's the Sterling magazine.
Oh
It's-
wow, it is.
Yeah.
It's got the patent number and everything on there.
Correct.
That is a rubber cast, so it's solid, and it makes it better for trooping because if I drop that, it won't break.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's wow. Nice.
And so he modified it, Lucas. He added T-tracks. He added some greeblies all over. He added a Hengsler box, I believe. Yes, it says Hengsler right there. And a nice scope. And made for a really cool prop.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, very cool. So I asked a question when we took the break about, hey, can we get Chewbacca in here one day? I kind of just floated that joke over your way, and you informed me, well, the 501's all Imperial forces, right?
Not just Imperial, but any Star Wars antagonist, or I think, as I said during the break, if you have to ask yourself, is this character good or bad, it's probably with the 501st.
Okay.
So the bad guys and anywhere in between the bad and good. For the protagonists, the good guys of the Star Wars saga, we have a sister organization called the Rebel Legion. Pretty much follows the same organization and process we do. It's a little bit smaller 'cause I personally think the bad guys just look cooler. But just a little stab at them. We have a rivalry, obviously. But yeah, the Rebel Legion attends many of the events alongside us. Many of our members are dual members, so they'll be members of both, have costumes, good and bad. Yeah, and Chewbacca's included in that organization. So
And they're all over. Is that organization, is that like just as big as yours, like the 14,000 members?
no, so in the way of numbers, no, it's not as big. It is as expansive, meaning that they do operate in a lot of the same countries that we do. They're international. They're likewise a 501 Category 7 nonprofit social club. They work just like us with Lucasfilm on some of the events. Yeah.
All right. So you've been with it for a year now.
About a year now,
So
yep.
give me your take. How long have you been with this
So
organization?
I joined in August 2018.
2018. So you've been for 2-3 years, going on 3 years. All right. So tell me, like, you guys do a lot of events with this. Has this really what has this done with, like, to your life, basically, for lack of a better question?
Sure. I'll let Thomas start off with this one.
Okay, thank you. So I joined it about a year ago. I'm still in high school, actually.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm the minority of this group, though. A lot of our members are in their 20s, 30s. But I come from a Boy Scout background. I'm an Eagle Scout.
Oh, wow.
I love community service.
What do you say? What are you supposed to say to an Eagle? So you say thank you for your service?
No, none of that.
But congratulations, I guess you'd say, right?
Thank you, yeah.
That's quite the accomplishment, becoming an Eagle Scout, isn't it?
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you so much. And basically, I love community service. And there's a lot of that involved in the 501st. And I love Star Wars. I grew up on it. My dad, bit of a Star Trek fan.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I found out about the 501st at a convention back in 2016. I was still 16. You need to be 18 to join.
Okay.
So I started around when I was 17, putting my first outfit together. It wasn't the Stormtrooper. I'm actually an Imperial officer first. That was my first outfit. The guys who, order the Stormtroopers around. And that's a really fun costume for me as well because I'm a lot more flexible. I can order people around for fun.
I can imagine dressing up in that costume's a lot, gives your day a little more longevity, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. These guys, you can only stay in for so long, but an officer, I can stay in all day if I had to. But again, a lot of community service. We visit children's hospitals. Those are my favorite events personally.
Okay.
I love the children's hospital visits.
What's that like in the children's hospitals? I mean, they just have to be kind of over the moon when they see you guys walk in the room. Like,
Yeah.
that's really got to make a big difference for them, doesn't it?
It is, and it's It's a surreal feeling to think that someone who has every reason to frown smiles even for a moment when you walk in the room, and you're the reason for that smile. So it's very encouraging. And
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and it's not by any means a cure or even a treatment for their chronic disease, whatever they're fighting for. And we don't claim it to be as much. In fact, when we do hospital visits, it's not like our fundraising events. We're not even raising money for the treatment of those diseases, but we are treating a symptom of pediatric chronic diseases, which is the deprivation of a childhood unconfined to a hospital environment, which is drab. I mean, they do their best. The hospital workers work day and night to try and provide entertainment for the children and to relieve them of the stress that they and their families experience, but they can only do so much on a hospital budget. So we come in and we try to interrupt what is otherwise a bleak memory in the mind of a child by providing them, even if only for 5-10 minutes once a month, something to smile about. And that's a memory that they can not only enjoy in the moment, but look back on while they're stuck in a hospital and smile with photos. We try to give them stickers, lightsabers, whatever we can to interrupt something that no family should have to live through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a father of 2 children, and I just cannot even fathom, like the reality of that, but it's there, and it's a reality, and these children's hospitals don't exist for no reason. They exist for a very good reason. So you guys are once a month, you're going to the children's hospital that often?
For each hospital, yes. So we work with multiple hospitals in South Florida. So, prior to the pandemic, we would be visiting maybe 2 hospitals twice a month, and then next month we would alternate to other hospitals. We actually have in Everglades Squad, it's not a standard unit for the 501st at large, but in our squad we have what's called a hospital liaison, which is just an unofficial position. It's one of our members who volunteers on top of going to events, to periodically contact hospital entertainment coordinators and liaisons. And that hospital liaison works to sustain and expand our relationship with hospitals in South Florida and gets us into those visits.
That's outstanding. Yeah. That's outstanding. So you've done these hospital visits with them as well? And
Yeah, I've done several now.
Yeah.
Hands down my favorite type of event to go to.
Okay.
The kids, they love it, as Eric stated. Even if it's for a minute, that you walk in and this child is this frowning, he's sad. And then you walk in and all of a sudden he lights up. And, you give him some gifts. Like we give them these cards, for example, right here. So our members have cards. They can remember. Of course, yeah.
All right, so they have member cards here. I'm going to hold that up for the camera. Hopefully it's in focus. And it's got, it's just kind of like a baseball or football card.
Yeah.
And it's got your number
That's
on it.
actually,
Is that
Yeah, it's mine.
that's your
Eric.
number? Yeah.
So that's one of my other costumes. I have 4 in total. And on that note, we actually have a set of each of our cards for everyone here for the staff. So we'll leave those with you after.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Awesome. So what other events do you guys attend?
So everything and anything. Now, there are some events that are barred by Lucasfilm licensing.
Okay.
As I mentioned, our relationship is not only important to Lucasfilm in the way of maintaining our accurate representation of the costumes, but also we want to be responsible with their intellectual property.
Right.
So we can't attend business locations for the purposes of marketing. For example, if a bar is having a Star Wars trivia night, we can't just go to a bar and be pictured with alcohol. To Lucasfilm, it's 2 things. First, it gives the impression that Lucasfilm, the company, endorses whatever company we are visiting.
Okay.
And the second thing is it's unauthorized marketing by a third party without permission from Lucasfilm to use the intellectual property. But other than that, we'll attend any event. So we attend sports games, also with Lucasfilm approval.
Okay.
But things that we don't necessarily, Lucasfilm has already authorized us to do are things like library socials. We visit schools, we visit hospitals, we go to conventions, we do weddings, we do bar mitzvahs, we do the fundraising walks, we do the fundraising galas, we will do community parades. We've been on stage with Weird Al. We, not Everglades Squad in South Florida, but our members in California were actually on in episodes 7 and 8 of the Mandalorian TV show as Stormtrooper extras. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau were short on Stormtrooper extras during production, and that's not just something that you can whip up more costumes or extras for without delaying production. So they called up the 501st and extended an invitation.
Calling the 501.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So our members were in that.
It just speaks to the authenticity of what we were talking about earlier
Exactly.
with your costumes. Or is it right to even call them costumes, I guess?
Yeah,
or,
no, it's costumes. I mean, and that's, in a sentence, that's what our accuracy about. It's not to gatekeep. It's not to be superior. We're just fans. We want to celebrate with other fans and incoming recruits. Our accuracy is purely for our relationship with Lucasfilm that enables us to do these events. They have us to the Hollywood premiere of The Rise of Skywalker in December. They flew some of our members in Everglades Squad to Jordan, the country, and we visited a children's hospital there. We went to the movie premiere there where The Rise of Skywalker was filmed.
Wow.
And
You went on that trip?
I did not personally, but we had 2 members from Everglades Squad,
Very cool.
Danny Tito and Dave Gray, that went over to Jordan and they took pictures where they filmed The Rise of Skywalker in the Jordanian desert. So
Wow, that must have been. I mean, I would imagine for a Star Wars, enthusiast, that had to have been an
it's
epic
insane.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and on top of that, it was an all-paid trip, so they didn't have to drop a dime, and Lucasfilm flew them out there. So it was amazing. So on top of that, yeah, we do Disney Rival Run here in Florida every year. It got canceled this year, but that is, if you're not familiar, it's a charity.
I have no idea what that is.
It's a charity run that Disney puts on in benefit of Make-A-Wish, which is our if a private event organizer doesn't choose a charity or doesn't have a preference, that's our default who we partner with. We have an endowment fund with Make-A-Wish, so we partner with Lucasfilm and Disney to attend their Rival Run and cheer on runners who pay to register and thus donate to Make-A-Wish. And we used to go to Legoland. We don't do that anymore. Authorization got pulled for that one, or just expired. I'm not actually sure of the circumstances, but yeah. So to answer your question, I mean, any event that you can dream of that's within LFL guidelines.
Okay. I often say, we from time to time will bring on organizations that selflessly help, others or the less fortunate or however you want to call that or label that. And we always say that, the intrinsic value of giving back is really, a valuable thing to receive in return. Like the thing you're saying about the children, seeing their faces and knowing that, you made a difference in their lives or that day is more important and more valuable than any physical or tangible thing that you could receive that might make you happy.
Sure.
Such as, we always say, for example, everyone always says winning the lottery or something like that, because all those things are fleeting. But experiences like that, you take with you, forever. So, congratulations to you guys, and it's appreciated, things like that, and that's one of the things that we like to do on this show, or spotlight those in the community that are doing good, just for the reasons of just out of the goodness of their heart. The world, obviously, especially with the way the world is now, needs a lot more of that. I don't think that the answers and the questions that are out there right now are as, cut and dry as everyone's kind of making them seem. If you just do this, then all the rest of that will be, solved. I don't think it's that easy. I think a lot of it does start, though, with some of the examples that you guys are laying out, to selflessly go and help others. And I think the world just needs to experience a little bit more of that, in their lives, and just turn off the TV and get away from, don't watch the news and like all that stuff like that, and get out and talk to your neighbors and
Sure.
experience people in the flesh rather than experiencing people, by staring at a box all day.
Exactly. And our work does get us out in the community. It gets us familiar. I moved to South Florida in 2013. My parents live in Stuart, Florida, in Martin County. And through Everglades Squad, since I joined in 2018, that 5-year interim where I wasn't a member, I wasn't very familiar with Broward County, Miami-Dade. I had no reason to come down here. But since joining the 501st and doing events, I've become very familiar with local communities. I've met people, just like today. I, through Howard, have networked with you, Dennis, and had the pleasure of coming here. So I'll give Thomas a chance to comment. But before I was a member, I guess I can't really say it now without incurring some bias, but one thing I always admired about the 501st is they're going out and they're doing these things and they are being selfless. But on top of that, many of the characters are helmeted. They're not attaching their face to the work that they do. And they really aren't in it to be recognized and personally, I'm not either, to be, although I surely do appreciate it, not to be congratulated or spotlighted. We definitely want to raise awareness for the causes we work with, but we're not looking to raise awareness for ourselves. So yeah, no,
it's a good release, I think to be able to, be an enthusiast about, something you're passionate about. And listen, it's no different. We're connected by water here. This is we're primarily a marine based studio. This is a little off brand for us, bringing you guys in, but I wanted to bring you guys in because everything that Howard always tells me about all the great stuff you guys do in the community, and I really wanted to put a focus on that today because it is so important, and I guess it's like, I don't care who you are. If you're doing good, then you're doing good. We want to spotlight you. But it's really, I don't know. I just can't say enough about it. It's good stuff. So I cut you off there. I think you're about to kind of get into something.
Yeah.
No worries. So yeah, like I said, I came in because I really like community service. Just graduated high school this year, heading over to Fort Myers next year to go to college. Plan on taking the Stormtrooper with me. Plan on taking my costumes with me. Education comes first, of course, but I plan on getting out a bit more when up there. Again, it's a nice way to detox at the end of the week. After a week of work, you get to go out, see your friends, get to make people smile, make people happy. They love it. They love seeing the Stormtroopers. I mean, it's not every day you get to say you've seen a Stormtrooper or Darth Vader, Kylo Ren. And again, I do it for the smiles.
Yeah.
It's awesome. You can't put a price value on that, I wouldn't take $1, a penny. It's just I do it for the smiles and I do it to make people happy.
Yeah, that's a good example that you guys are laying out. I guess the thing I was going to say, to had a fleeting thought, and now I remember what it was, is, our brand here is primarily marine-based, and we bring on communities that revolve, or we bring on organizations and people that kind of, revolve their giving around the marine industry, or through boating or through fishing or stuff like that. But what I was going to say, it's nice to kind of be able to meld your passion into the giving aspect of it too. And you guys certainly have a passion for it. Star Wars. I mean, obviously it's, I think, one of the greatest films of all time. You guys probably think it is the greatest film of all time, I'm sure. Everyone's truly a fan of Star Wars. I think, I rarely ever met someone that doesn't like Star Wars. But take me through, individually some of your influences. When did the Star Wars thing start? How did you get into it personally? What does it mean to you?
Thomas, you can go ahead.
Okay. When I was very young, my uncle, as I said before, my dad doesn't really like Star Wars. He likes it, but he's more of a Star Trek fan. My uncle, huge Star Wars fan. He came over one day, maybe it was around 5, and was like, I got to show you this film. Popped in episode 4 in the VHS. And after that, I was hooked, man. Every day I was watching Star Wars. And, then I started getting into the books. The books I love. I started getting into the comics, the games, all throughout my, my education alongside. And that really helped me cope in school.
Yeah.
It was nice to have something to talk about. Again, I was always out camping and stuff. It was fun to talk about it with friends. I would say my Star Wars, geekness kind of kicked off when I went to Star Wars Celebration in Orlando.
Okay.
That was in 2017. My mom's friend had got a pair of tickets. She wasn't going to go anymore, something had come up. So she gave them to me. At this point, I would watch Star Wars every now and then, but I wasn't over the top about it. I went there for 4 days in Orlando, had the time of my life, met so many cool people. It's where I found out about the 501st for the first time. And that's where it all started. A few months later, I went to a Marlins game. Everglades squad was there. And I talked to a few members. Keep in mind, I was only 16 at this time. So I had a lot of time to really plan out what I wanted to do. And after that, I just started getting into more comics and books and, I started basing school projects around it. It was fun. It was fun. So that's how I got into Star Wars. My uncle hooked me in. My dad, we, as a family day, we would go out and see Episode 7, Rogue One, Episode 8, and, now my family loves it, so I kind of roped them in as well.
Wow, that's great. It's interesting for me to hear that story because I grew up with Star Wars. Like ever since I don't want to, put an age on myself here like too much, but the Star Wars when I was a kid was all new in the theaters, and it was great films. And when like things like Phantom Menace came out, those of us who grew up with just seeing it in, I guess we'll call it analog, because there wasn't as many of, obviously the CGI and has changed the franchise of the whole thing. We're a little jaded when Phantom Menace and Jar Jar Binks kind of came out. I don't want to talk down the brand or anything like that, but, I guess now looking back on it kind of has its place in the whole saga and the whole evolution of where everything kind of is now. So it's interesting for me to hear someone who says, oh, and it really ramped up for me in 2017, I understand you're in high school and everything, but for me, it's like I've seen the franchise for so long and adored it for so long. It's kind of cool to see that, it's got such legs still that it's continually creating new fans, like even to this day. So it speaks volumes to it. So
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, 501st has 3 missions. One of them is to contribute. We've talked at length about that. The other 2 are to facilitate the use of the costumes that we wear. And what that means in short is simply that if we weren't doing events that we do, they'd be just on mannequins in our house and make a nice display. So 501st gives members something to do with the costumes. Our other mission is to promote interest in Star Wars. And I'll go back to an anecdote to illustrate what you're referencing, Dennis. I was at MegaCon, I think it was 2019 MegaCon in Orlando, and there was a father and her child, his child. I think she was 10 at the time, and I had gotten to chatting. He came by our booth, and he was interested in joining, so I gave him my information for the purposes of sending him recruitment material, just, walk him through the process, because it is, it's not especially difficult, but I think, as we said earlier, it's a bit intimidating. And in one of the emails that followed, he said that, and I'll never forget this quote, he said, most people like the 501st because they like Star Wars. For my daughter, she likes Star Wars because of the 501st. And that's also what this is about. It's certainly just as much about doing charity, but we give other families the opportunity to do what I've experienced, what Thomas has experienced, and presumably, I don't want to speak for you, but maybe what you've experienced, Dennis, which is Star Wars is a medium for all. It's something that can bind us together. It's a common flag for us to fly under. No matter if you're a fan of the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, the sequel trilogy, or one of the animated TV shows, the comics, the books, the video games, everyone can find a place in Star Wars. It's such an expansive galaxy, and you can find your own way to enjoy it, just as you can find your own costume to wear. You can just read the comics. You can just read the books. You can just play the video games if you want. But no matter how you express your love for Star Wars, it's still a commonality that has impacts for families, for friends, for otherwise strangers. The brand recognition of Star Wars is so expansive that when we show up at an event, it is something that people see, and 2 people who may have otherwise not even looked at each other, find a common interest. And I mean, for a family, I think that's invaluable. With me, my interest in Star Wars started when I was about 6 or 7. One of my childhood best friends and someone who lived in the neighborhood showed me Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. That was the first Star Wars movie I saw, and from there I was hooked. And then all my costumes are from the original trilogy, so I would say that is probably my favorite, but I have nothing against any of the other Star Wars content, namely for that reason. I prefer to focus on what we enjoy rather than what we dislike.
It's such an interesting perspective, like everything that you just laid out, right down with just everything you just said. But I also think it's highly interesting that the Revenge of the Sith was your first experience of those. I guess what are those throwbacks? The first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
I really did like that one. You know, with the Queen Amidala and what was the name of that Sith that was in? God, I'm drawing a blank on his name with the red and the black face.
Darth Maul.
Darth
That
Maul.
was
Yeah,
episode
I
1.
always thought that was a really cool like designed character.
Yeah. We have
yes.
a couple in Florida.
Yeah. Oh, do you?
Yes.
So I thought that was, it's an interesting perspective to see because I'm always like, Empire Strikes Back, I always think is like the greatest one of the entire franchise just because I think you can't get better than the classic I'm Your Father. You know, no, I'll never join you and cut off his hand and everything like that. Just seems to me that that's one of the greatest moments in all of film history was that moment. And to this day, like you could say, I'm your father, and people know exactly the moment you're talking about. It, takes it a long way. So
Sure.
it's interesting to hear that perspective, though. Perhaps it's an age difference or even a cultural difference or however, generational, is not cultural, generational difference. To see that was your, start to it. So what do you think of the episodes? Was it 4 through 6? Right. So that's what Star Wars, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Right. What's your thoughts and feelings on those?
Well, like I said, all my costumes are from those episodes. So I have 4. I have Boba Fett from Return of the Jedi. I have the Scout Trooper from Return of the Jedi. I have the Royal Guard, the Red Guys from Return of the Jedi. And then I have a Stormtrooper from A New Hope. So needless to say, especially with all the time and money I've sunk into those costumes, I really do enjoy the original trilogy. But that doesn't preclude my enjoyment of the prequels or sequels either. And that's the thing about Star Wars. It's multi-generational, it's multiracial, it's multinational. Anyone can find something to enjoy in Star Wars. It can be from any of the mediums that I aforementioned. And that's something that I think is priceless, especially with, regardless of maybe where you fall, its division is prevalent and it can develop cynicism, antagonism. But Star Wars, in some ways, is an antidote to that. It's something people can find something in common with. And I mean, Star Wars being so much, it's an adventure, it's a romance, it's an opera, it's a drama, it's action, it's war, it's even in some ways, for those that choose to interpret it that way, political commentary. George Lucas himself said he was interested in depicting our social systems through his creation of the Star Wars galaxy. And, for those that want to take an academic perspective, it's there. So, I mean, there are multiple ways that you can not only enjoy the Star Wars universe, but multiple ways you can examine and look at it. And no matter what you choose to do with it or how you choose to enjoy it, it's something that binds people together. And I think that's really powerful, especially with so much division.
I always think, speaking of the academic perspective, I always think it's very interesting when you analyze the Star Wars story, from the macro view, and see the Joseph Campbell influence of it all. So I'm not sure how much you guys have read into the whole Joseph Campbell aspect of it, but being huge Star Wars fans, I'm sure you understand it and know of it.
Maybe not by name. It doesn't ring a bell.
So Joseph Campbell, and maybe this is something for you to kind of look into. Joseph Campbell was a writer, and he wrote this book, A Hero with a Thousand Faces. And I'm going to paraphrase this whole thing here too. So it's just kind of like a general view because I don't know specifically a ton about it. I did take a course in college, a world religions course, and they brought up this book, and there was a mention of it. How, every story has a parallel for a hero's journey, to where a hero will, need assistance or has doubt before taking the journey and then goes on a certain path in the journey. You can see parallels, like the life of Buddha, the life of Jesus, so the Star Wars and Luke Skywalker, and Joseph Campbell runs all these parallels to the point where Joseph Campbell and George Lucas became very good friends because he saw these parallels in the entire story. And I think George Lucas, again, this is where my paraphrasing comes in. I think George Lucas really used Joseph Campbell's theories on that in the entire saga.
Sure.
So that's another academic, point of view from it, and something that I kind of want to look into a little bit more with the whole Joseph Campbell thing. I actually think on Disney Plus there was a Star Wars documentary that maybe touched on it a little bit.
Perhaps.
But yeah, I think, it's an interesting, interesting, when you start getting down, peeling away the layers of Star Wars, it's such a deep, story.
No, I can see the relevance, and it's just a matter of choosing which layer you want to look at. With Joseph Campbell, the application of his work is clear. I mean, with Jesus being the prodigal son, I mean, they're, regardless of your stance on religion, I mean, Jesus recounted in the Bible that, to do his journey, to leave with what was considered the lesser of society, congregate with them and travel with them across Israel, Judea. I mean, that requires faith. The same way Luke has to trust in a force he can't see to overcome his inhibitions about joining the rebellion, traveling the galaxy, and fighting an empire that was, millions times his size.
Right.
And just the same for one man, Jesus, overcoming Satan.
Temptation in the desert, tempted by the devil in the desert, and
Exactly.
Join the dark side.
But it's not only that. Like we talked about the World War II influence too. I mean, there was just looking at the story. I mean, it's a ragtag group of freedom fighters trying to resist an empire trying to occupy the galaxy. The same way Germany tried to occupy France, Belgium, Denmark, etc., and was met with the French resistance fighters. I mean, in combination with Allied forces, they overcame an empire that was looking to dominate for their own gain and they secure their vital interests. But there's lots to be said. I'll let Thomas chime in on what he thinks.
Sure. The original films, I love them. I grew up on old films, Citizen Kane, this original Star Wars trilogy, Godfather. I don't know if you're familiar with Godfather.
Very familiar with The Godfather. Yeah.
I'm Tom Hagen.
I love it. Yeah. The attorney.
Yeah, the attorney. So I'm named after him, which I thought was funny because my parents laid that out for me while I'm watching it. And they're like,
really? So you were named after him?
Well, it wasn't the full reason, but
Okay.
they thought it was funny. It was a bit of something after the fact. It's neat. But
Very cool.
I grew up on old films. Again, to me personally, I like all the films, but nothing beats the originals.
Okay.
Lucas said originally that it was just going to be a one and done with A New Hope. It wasn't even called A New Hope when he released it. It was just Star Wars.
Right.
And then he caught lightning in a bottle with Episode 4. So then he went on to make 5, and 5 is my favorite as well. 5 is a really good film. Again, one of the greatest cinematic moments in cinema history with the I Am Your Father. It's a great thing. Episode 6 also really good, but again, I love them, and everything you and Eric touched on is true. There's a lot of deep meaning in these films. Again, you can sit your kid in front of the TV, and he can just watch it, and not get anything from it. He'll just get a fun action film. But if you really look into it and dissect it, there's a lot in there about religion, about war, about politics. It's all there. So there's a lot of deep meaning behind all these films.
So what other old films do you like? I like a lot of old films too. My dad was always kind of brought me up on a lot of the old films, mostly like, old war movies. He would always make me watch Bridge Over the River Kwai and all that, and Casablanca and all these great films.
Casablanca's a good one.
Citizen Kane.
I took a film class in school and I saw a lot of those old films as well, Casablanca in particular. So Godfather, like I mentioned, Star Trek I watched from time to time. A lot of 90s films I watched as well when I got older. I like a lot of Tarantino films. So
What's your favorite?
I'm on the fence between Pulp Fiction and Inglourious Bastards. I know that Inglourious is a newer film. For me, it's a bit older though, but I really like Pulp Fiction. And again, Samuel L. Jackson was in Star Wars, so it makes it all better.
I mean, Pulp Fiction kind of put Tarantino on the map there.
It did.
You know?
Did. It was his breakthrough. Reservoir Dogs, was his first film.
Right, but I think Pulp Fiction, there was such shock value, especially for the time when it came out. I do remember when it came out, it was a little controversial. Now, it's kind of like, it was revolutionary in the sense that a lot of films are in that vein now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have that shock value because you almost need it at this point.
Exactly.
Because of the success that movie had,
Yeah, but I like sitting down, watching an old film. I probably pick up the original trilogy more than I pick up, the prequels or the sequels. It's just a fun movie to watch on like a rainy day, or now that we're all inside with the pandemic and everything.
Right.
It's nice to sit down and relax, watch
Yeah.
a film with your family or by yourself.
That was a weird moment with the whole pandemic thing, and I understand it's still kind of out there, but I think we understand a little bit how to deal with it more. The first couple of weeks of it, everyone was like, "What's going on?" You know what I mean? But I think at this point, obviously you got to kind of take care of yourself and play it safe, play it cool, but now I think we understand like the motions that we need to take during the course of our day to keep ourselves safe and healthy and all that. But yeah, it's an interesting time. Speaking from someone who's a little older than you guys, I've never experienced anything like that, in my lifetime to that extreme. So I can only imagine what your guys' perspective is, on, hopefully, that was just an event that you'll never see again,
No.
But, I don't know if it's safe to say that or not, I don't like the term new normal. I think that's getting thrown around a little bit too loosely, but, I think we just need to, understand, what the event was, and, perhaps I'm rambling on about that, but
It's affected a lot of us. My graduation got canceled, unfortunately, which
I'm sorry. I feel so bad about those things.
I'll look back at it in the future and be like, I was the only class that didn't get a graduation, I guess, but it's an interesting story. I can live without it. I saw a funny post online. If you want to experience your graduation, throw on a towel and go into a hot room for a few hours.
It's a good one.
Yeah. But again, the pandemic allowed me to work on this. The Stormtrooper was a project I picked up back in December. And again, when I was saying in the armor, you buy the kit, right? And it's just all untrimmed plastic, and you got to cut it, sand it, glue it. And, there's like so much information online. We have forums. Did you touch on the forums yet, or?
No, we can get into the organization of the 501st a bit more. So to pick up on where Thomas was going with that, so the 501st is international, like we've covered. It is organized geographically in the garrisons, and the size of the garrison will depend on the density of the members we have in that area. First, it starts out as an outpost. What an outpost is just simply one person who wants to join the 501st where there already isn't an organization. I think our most recent one was the island of Malta in the Mediterranean Sea.
Cool.
There was one guy there that built a shore trooper kit and wanted to join the 501st, so he set up an outpost. Once the outpost, gains enough members, I think that one in particular has, 3 now, so it's growing. And once it has enough members, it can apply for garrison status. I'm not sure of the threshold off the top of my head, but you have to have a certain number of members, and then you apply. And for the garrison, for example, the state of Florida has a statewide garrison, but a member where they're maybe not as tightly packed or there aren't as many, like the Midwest garrison, will cover several states. I think North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, etc. And then Oklahoma has their own, Louisiana has their own, California has 3 because it's huge. But that's neither here nor there. From the garrisons, depending on how many members the garrison has, if it needs more subunits, it has squads. So Florida Garrison, like I mentioned, has 5 squads, Everglades Squad being one of them. Now, to get back to what Thomas was saying about the online forums and stuff, our only other, because I know it gets needlessly complicated to an outsider maybe, but our only other unit of organization is what's called detachments. And what detachments are they're organized based on costume. So, for example, all the Stormtroopers in the 501st and the variants, meaning like the Incinerator Trooper from The Mandalorian, a TK Commander from The Force Unleashed, a Star Wars video game, are in the 1st Imperial Stormtrooper detachment. And what those are is everyone in the 501st with one of those costumes is a detachment member by default. And each detachment has their own website. And on this website is what Thomas said is forums. Now, it's a bit archaic to some with instant messaging becoming a thing, but discussion boards where members will post best tips, best practices, tutorials on how to build armor. They'll share event details. We'll do merchandise you see laid out in front on the table, coins, patches, trading cards, detachments do all of that. And they are official 501st subunits, but they have their own staff, much like a garrison or squad would. So the same applies for the Scout Trooper. That's the 501st Pathfinders. It has the Scout Troopers, the Shore Troopers, and the Patrol Troopers from Solo. You have Bounty Hunters Guild, which has all the Bounty Hunters, Boba Fett, Jango Fett, Zam Wessel, the Mandalorian soon. The CRL has not been finished for that one yet. And just other ones like Embo, Dengar, IG-88, Zuckuss, Forlom. Sorry, not IG-88. I misspoke. That's actually not a costume. But that's neither here nor there. Then you have ones for like Snowtroopers, Blizzard Force, and I won't go into detail. You have Imperial's Officer Corps for Imperial officers. You have Sovereign Protectors for Royal Guards. And when a new member wants to join, they can register on this website. And they can introduce themselves, say what costume they're interested in, and then be guided on experts who have come before them and built these costumes. And they'll follow what's called a build thread, which is step-by-step construction with photo documentation and text of building your costume. It's not required. People who commission a costume entirely obviously aren't going to have a lot to post if they're not building it. But for those that do build it and do build threads, future members coming after them can go back to them and look at how they did it and try things out for their armor to see if they can build it. So those are the organization units. Again, garrisons, squads, outposts when they're too small, and detachments.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of organization, and like Eric said, there's staff for these detachments. So while Eric is command staff for a squad, I'm a smaller position on my detachment, which is the Imperial Officer Corps. So I became really well versed in these costumes, breaking down like the exact stitching of the uniforms. I know all these details about the costumes. So I was approached and offered a position in the staff of the detachment. It's a smaller position again, but I go around helping new members. My job is to help new members. If they're interested in an officer, I'll private message them. I'll help them get on the right trail, how to get in, what to buy, what's good, what's reputable, and I'm basically a well of information. And that's what's really great about the 501st and the CRLs Eric mentioned. This isn't Disney or Lucasfilm sending us a reference. The members come together, they take photos off the screens, they like compare and contrast, they say, oh, well, this needs to go here, and the members write it themselves. So when a new character pops on screen, members come together and they design these outfits. Because again, sometimes we can't get the outfits in hands, obviously. They're with Lucasfilm. So we have to pull from screen caps and really work on it together. It's a collaboration. And that's what's really great about the 501st is, this took years to develop, like a Stormtrooper, for example. Someone actually got their hands on an original suit from A New Hope, and it was all yellow and destroyed, but there was a lot of information we took from that, like how the interior strapping worked. So there's a lot of, it's cool because it's a community effort. Everyone comes together to make these new costumes. People are working on the Mandalorian right now. People are working on the new Stormtroopers from Episode 9. So there's a lot of, it's very community based, and these forms are important to our organization to make these costumes.
Yeah, you guys put a lot of work into this, and it shows, which, we're a creative business here, so we understand the value of putting a lot of effort into creative and how that can make a difference, how it does make a difference. I commend you on your efforts, and trust, this isn't the first time I'm seeing this level of stuff, because obviously Howard's shown me a bunch of stuff in the past, and, it's impressive. It really is. He takes me through some of the, he'll come knock on the door and say, check this out. I'm like, oh, that's cool, and I just think it's really interesting. Now, I'm a Star Wars fan. I'm nowhere near the level that you guys are with it. I can appreciate all the time and effort and, pouring your heart and soul into making this stuff look great and, making all your events and actions be great. And also, especially with the community give, it's an admirable effort on all fronts. And it's nice to see, everything that you laid out with the garrisons and the outposts and how deep the organization goes and how organized, it really is, speaks volumes, to the effort, so it's nice to see. It's very nice to see. So I want to thank you guys for coming on today. Is there anything else you guys want to cover? I mean, while we got you in the podcast room?
Yeah, sure. So for anyone listening, if you have any questions about how to join or maybe how to have us an event, To request an appearance, you can go to 501st.com. Like I said earlier in the podcast, all of our events are free. If it's a private event, we usually encourage a donation, but it's not mandatory and it doesn't influence whether we attend the event or not.
And what does the donation go to?
Well,
Just so people understand where their money's going.
No. For the private event, the organizer gets to choose. So if they want to donate to Wounded Warriors, they can donate to Wounded Warriors. If they want to donate to the Red Cross, they can do that. They can donate to Make-A-Wish.
So if you accept donations, it goes directly to the organization.
Yeah, no, it doesn't go through us at all.
Right.
We only ask that you just put our name down for record keeping on the donation itself because we report that every year. But yeah, if you don't have a preference, then like I also said, you just goes to Make-A-Wish. We have an endowment fund that we set up. I think our goal is 501,000 by September 2021.
Wow. Are you guys getting close to that?
Yeah, no, we're making good progress ahead of schedule, really. But with the pandemic, that has derailed things because we don't do as many events. So that's for appearances. And if you want to join, 501st.com too, you can, like I said, look up any costume using any internet browser. Just type the name of the costume and CRL. And you can find all the details on that costume along with a link to the detachment website that we talked about to begin, looking at vendors, getting tips from other members. And you're also welcome to contact me. You can find Everglades Squad on Facebook, Instagram. If you message either of those platforms, we will respond. If you have any questions and live in South Florida and just are interested in getting started. But other than that, no, I think that pretty much covers everything.
Okay, excellent. Thomas?
And to add to that, with the pandemic, where the Florida garrison is taking great measures to, social distance during these events. If anyone who wants to host us is worried about something like that. Again, summer is like our busy months. June, July, and August, we would have 2 events every weekend. It's crazy. We get a lot of events. And unfortunately with this, that cut down a lot. And if anyone's listening that wants to invite us, we're taking great measures to keep everyone safe during these events. And we have guidelines we follow now for the pandemic.
That's great. That's good to put that out there, definitely. Do you have events coming up this summer?
We do, yeah. So our next event is actually going to be, it's not one that can be publicly attended. It's a wedding, June 27th.
Really?
Our next one after that, I don't know off the top of my head. You can find all of our events.
Does the bride know that you're coming?
I think it was the groom that requested us, so maybe not.
The weddings are wild.
Yeah, I did a wedding on Sunday. They made a donation to Alzheimer's research, and it was a backyard wedding. The bride's parents were unable to make it. Her stepmother actually has coronavirus, so they weren't able to travel, and she had one of our costumers in the Mandalorian suit walk her down the aisle in place of her father since he couldn't be there. And then we also had 2 stormtroopers that participated as the groom's best man. I can't forget what you call it, groomsmen.
Right, groomsmen. Yeah.
But for public events, you can find us on Facebook as well, and we have a calendar there. That you
Anyone doing the conga line at a wedding?
No. So there weren't any guests, and there wasn't really a reception either because it was because of the virus. It was all pretty much virtual.
Right. What about any of the other past weddings?
We danced.
They get a little crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that your phone? It's awesome.
The weddings are really fun to go to, I have to say. Everyone's so excited to see us. The first wedding I ever went to, I as an officer, I walked, I think the father of the groom down the aisle, and that was fun. And we had stormtroopers escort the bride, Vader escort, I forgot who it was. Maybe it was the flower boy or something, but it's a lot of fun. The people who invite us to weddings know where they want us, and we listen, and it comes out great. And then they invite us to take photos after.
What's the craziest event that you guys have been to?
In terms of,
I don't know what. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a broad question.
So, in terms of hype, we do have an event that we tend to attend every year. It's at the BBT Center, home of the Florida Panthers, and it's Christmas in July. And I can't remember the host's organization's name, but it's basically Christmas for homeless and orphaned children. They come to the BBT Center, they fill the center I guess what would usually be the rink. And they have all kinds of activities for them to do, and we go. That one tends to get crazy. To no fault of the children, you know, obviously being without parents, they don't necessarily have the inhibitions that other children are taught.
No, they're probably ready to charge on those presents, right?
Charge at the presents, they like to charge at the costumes. So that's in terms of hype. Now, the weirdest, like most out there event we've ever been invited to, there's some private events, I'm sure, like birthday parties.
There are some private events we're not going to talk about.
Yeah. There are birthdays and bar mitzvahs that can get really crazy or just
Yeah.
have, like, want us to do kind of strange stuff. Or not maybe not strange, just unique. Like, there was a wedding we did in Miami. It was 2 stormtroopers and an Imperial officer, and originally they wanted Darth Vader to, quote unquote, deliver a message from the Emperor. And it being Darth Vader, it's not exactly easy to, in costume, read anything. They wanted to do it off an iPad and direct guests to their tables. So we ended up sending an Imperial officer instead, which is a bit easier in terms of vision and not having gloves to direct people to their table. And the stormtroopers, quote unquote, enforced it. So sometimes there are kind of like elaborate plans of actions that we have to do during the events, and we're happy to do them. It's not an inconvenience. It's just sometimes it is a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
So
You were about to
Yeah.
say, add to that.
Christmas in July was my second event I've ever went to. My first event was SuperCon, and that was a multiple day event. I love the conventions, but Christmas in July. Were you there last time?
yeah, I was there. It's being in costume. I was in the Stormtrooper, and as you just saw, Dennis, with Thomas and the Stormtrooper, mobility and visibility are limited extremely.
Yes.
So
yeah.
you can't see your own feet. And
So you like knocking a kid out with a gun? You turn.
Yeah, no, it happens accidentally. We
Yeah.
can't see our feet in those costumes, so we can't look down. And if a little child,
Wow, have you ever wrecked like a kid?
No.
I mean, I have
Whoa.
on accident.
Oh man.
I mean, sometimes we'll be standing for photos, and a kid will come up unannounced, maybe unaccompanied by a parent, and we'll have to move to the next position, or maybe someone else is calling our attention. And we have handlers that, of course, look out for us, guide us about our events. But in some instances, handlers get distracted or taking photos for other people, and there might be a little child in front of us. And unfortunately, we just have no way to tell. So we'll take a step, and sometimes we'll knock into them. I've never had or seen or heard of anyone getting gravely injured.
Yeah, no, I'm not
like a
trying
little
to
bump,
put a
yeah.
bad stamp on
Yeah,
the thing.
but-
I just asked the question. Yeah.
Yeah, a bump. It happens.
Just trying to be funny. That's
No, it's all right.
At Christmas in July, I was taking photos. We were by one of the boards, I think, and a little kid comes up to me. I'm in my officer at this point. I didn't have the Stormtrooper, and just punches me right in the crotch.
No.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
A kid?
A kid.
When you were restored because he thought you were a bad guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably the craziest thing that happened to me at an event. Luckily, I've been fortunate enough. This Stormtrooper hasn't seen the light of day yet at an official, event.
Right. You got an extra cup on under there this time?
Well, the armor helps. But I would say that was probably the wildest story I've ever had in the 501st. The kid just
Yeah.
decking me right there. But the wildest event I've ever been to, Miami Heat Night. Miami Heat Night is
So those
crazy.
Miami Heat dancers can get a little, right?
We were getting changed, and I'm not familiar with basketball. I'm an NFL guy. I like the New York Giants are my favorite team.
Okay.
But
You like Barkley?
I like Barkley.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Jones does this season.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So you're talking about the Miami Heat dancers, right?
so we're changed. Were you at Miami Heat Night?
No, I wasn't there.
We're at Miami Heat Night. They were really elaborate. So we go, like Eric mentioned, we go to sports games. Panthers, they just have us walk around, take photos. Miami Heat Night, they had everything planned out. Like they split us up. They sent us to different parts of the stadium. We were on the big screen playing games with audience. I got to go into the recording studio, and me and a few stormtroopers got to take over the recording studio, which was really fun. But while we were changing at the beginning, basketball players started coming back and shaking our hands and meeting us, like from Miami Heat. And I don't know their names, unfortunately, but it was really cool to see some players come back. And
Oh,
be
that's
like,
cool.
They were like, "Oh, we're huge fans," and I'm like, "You're huge fans."
Wow.
Some of the people here are huge fans of you.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
Yeah, they're really cool events. But people get really touchy-feely sometimes with the costumes.
I bet. And,
Yeah.
Everyone just wants to like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they look so good. I'm sure people.
People touch them. And some people are a bit, again, it's volunteer. These costumes belong to us, not the 501st.
Right.
So some people are like comfortable with people touching you. Some people aren't. It's personal preference. In my officer, I don't care if anyone touches me really because it's fabric. Nothing can really break on it.
Well, I mean, unless they punch you in the crotch.
Unless they punch me in the crotch. Yeah.
You ever have to be like, dude, take it easy.
Yeah. So one of our Vaders was handed a baby.
No.
That was really. I had to step in and.
Someone handed their child to Vader?
Yeah, like infant. In the.
I don't suggest that people do that.
And after we were suiting down, like taking off our costumes, I told the Vader, his name's James, and I'm like, James, someone handed you their child, right? And he's like, I had no idea.
No idea.
Yeah.
You can't see.
You can't see.
You can't see.
It's not about the image or, we're not super strict. We're pretty easygoing, I'd like to think. It's just that purely for safety reasons, like
Yeah, please.
Yeah, no,
Please
yeah.
don't hand us your children.
Oh my God.
yeah, I
Wow.
mean, you wonder why stormtroopers jokingly miss their targets.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
right.
because we can't see.
You can't look down at these
You
things.
guys are horrible shots.
Yeah, yes, we are.
There's an explanation to it in
Is there?
universe. Yeah.
What is it?
It's a bit lengthy, but in A New Hope,
Do your work.
the stormtroopers on the Death Star, first of all, they planted a tracking beacon on the Millennium Falcon, and they intended for the rebels to escape. So the stormtroopers' job on the Millennium Falcon, the Death Star in A New Hope, were simply to corral the protagonist into where Vader had instructed them to corral them to. They didn't want to shoot to kill. After all, they wanted to find the location of the rebel base. So, in the opening of A New Hope, you look to the Tantive 4 and the Imperial stormtroopers boarding the blockade runner. They took pretty heavy casualties for the rebels. Pretty much every fleet trooper you see ends up on the floor. So,
But they're expendable in Vader's eyes, right?
yeah. Well, the stormtroopers, yeah. No, like they were shooting to kill and they were hitting their targets at the beginning of A New Hope.
Oh, okay.
But on the Death Star, you don't see that as much because of the fact that they intended for the rebels to escape all along. So again, they could find the rebel base.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as for other episodes, Empire Strikes Back on Cloud City. Again, Vader wanted to capture Skywalker and his friends, namely for interrogation, but for Skywalker to turn him to the dark side at that point. So, all throughout the original trilogy, stormtroopers are not necessarily meant to hit their targets. Only recently in The Mandalorian has it been kind of canonized that stormtroopers are actually bad shots with the jokes that the show. So it kind of debunks that theory, but I'd like to think we're still pretty okay shots.
What I tell people is, as a joke, the peace-loving Empire doesn't shoot to kill. They only fire warning shots.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a joke, but
I have another joke too. Do you ever like if your friend's a sellout, do you ever call him like Lando? No.
No, not
'Cause
really.
Lando sold out Han.
Yeah, no,
I'm just kidding. Yeah. Anyone ever dress up like Jabba the Hutt?
no.
We've had funny you bring that up. We do have members who jokingly for conventions. I know one in particular who will put on Slave Leia despite being a male.
Get out. Really?
Yeah. And I'm not.
You don't have to be politically correct.
Yeah,
It's cool.
cross-dressing, I have nothing against that, not at all, but they do it intentionally for the sake of a joke, and
Okay.
they'll walk around and they know that they'll accentuate their figure, which isn't necessarily congruent with Carrie Fisher's in ROTJ, if you get what I mean.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, so, we like to have fun with it. Like
Ever
personally,
since I was 12, I got what you mean. No.
but like Boba Fett for conventions, I'm trying to find his costume from Attack of the Clones Episode 2 when he's young.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Jango Fett, who is, of course, Boba Fett's father, or clone, really.
What about Jawas?
Yeah, we have Jawas.
Yeah?
Yeah. But for Boba Fett, for
And
instance,
Ewoks?
we have Ewoks too, full size. They're really, really hot to wear.
I can imagine, especially in Florida.
Yes, yeah. We had one member in our squad, and they're part of the Rebel Legion, our sister organization that I mentioned. But we did have one squad member who's members of both try and do an Ewok, and she wore it, I think once to a troop, lasted 20 minutes outside, and then never put it on again.
Yeah.
So, and those are expensive too.
Yeah, I can imagine that's not cheap building that one.
Well, see, the same thing goes with Wookiees too. For an Ewok, you have to thread each and every individual hair. So you get basically like a fencing mask type material that's like a very tight mesh, and you thread one hair at a time, tie it behind, thread another hair. I'm not sure exactly how it's done. I've never done a Wookiee, nor will I ever for that reason.
Wow.
But it takes probably, easily years to build one of those things. And then you got to, never mind the stilts that you have to put in them. It's quite elaborate.
I was just about to touch on the Wookiees, actually. We have
You do a Wookiee?
we have one Wookiee. It's not Chewbacca, but it's Chief Tarful. He's in episode 3. He's the Wookiee with Chewbacca. And that costume looks like an absolute nightmare to wear. I mean,
Yeah.
it's again, you're on stilts, and visibility horrible again because you're like 7 feet tall. It's probably the most expensive costume in the Rebel Legion in 501st period. I mean, Boba Fett is a pretty expensive costume, but if hand making the costume isn't as expensive as commissioning it, I know.
You said C-3PO was expensive too, right?
C-3PO, yeah, because you got to chrome him. and then-
That's Rebel Legion. I wasn't really including that. That one, yeah, that's
Yeah,
expensive
sorry.
too.
I
No,
No. Yeah, we're
don't mean to offend anybody here by crossing over into the Rebel Legion.
No, no offense at all. Although, yeah, we have a healthy rivalry. Yeah, but as far as the Legion goes for the costumes, I'd say Boba Fett, Darth Vader, probably some of the more expensive. Tarful is not. I don't think he's dual. He's only Rebel Legion.
he's only Rebel Legion, yes.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
after you,
We have a 000 too, which is from Darth Vader comics. It's basically a black version of C-3PO, black plated, red eyes. That one's pretty expensive. You have there is a Wookiee. It's also from the Darth Vader comics, same comics. It's I don't even know how to pronounce his name. It starts with a K, but it's a black Wookiee, and it's a bounty hunter, and that one is just as much as Chewbacca. It's like 7,000-8,000.
yeah, it's like it can get really expensive. I think our member, the Tarful Stone is like 10 grand because Tarful also wears like a really expensive bandolier. It's like all special. It's crazy.
Wow.
These get up in the really, really high price marks.
Wow.
Yeah. For anyone interested in joining, I would recommend like an officer as a gateway. What I did was I started as an officer because once you get in, you can talk to these members firsthand and see, hey, how does the Stormtrooper feel? How does the Scout Trooper feel? And an officer, my first officer ran me about $500, which it's still a lot of money, but my Stormtrooper here was like $2,000.
Yeah, but I mean, how much does it cost to get a custom tailored suit? I mean, it's about that much, if not more.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, it's worth every dollar. Like I mentioned earlier, for the children hospital visits are great.
That's very cool.
It makes me feel good about my purchase.
Yeah,
No buyer's remorse.
No doubt about it. Listen, you guys put a lot of hard work into this, right? And it shows. And your efforts are just very admirable. And we appreciate you guys coming on today and sharing with us everything about you guys and your organization, and laying some Star Wars knowledge on us, which was cool, and telling us some of your stories. So give us that information again. John will flash it up on the screen, how people can contact you if they need it. It's 501.
Sure. So for 501st, for event requests, you can just go to 501st.com. We have a menu there. You should see request an appearance. You'll fill out a form. Someone will be in touch. If you're interested in joining or want to contact Everglades Squad directly for some other reason, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram by just searching Everglades Squad. You can message us there. Should be pretty easy to find. All our pages are public. It'll be filled with Star Wars characters. But yeah, otherwise, you're welcome to also just email me directly. My email is Everglades Squad. Nope, take that back. EvergladesSL@gmail.com. And I check that on my phone daily. So
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Of
course.
Right, you're
Thanks
doing a
for
lot
having
of good in the community, right? We wanted to put a spotlight on that. We appreciate everything you guys do. Keep it going. Right?
Thank you.
you very much.
thank you, Dennis.
And you good, John?
Good.
All right, your ego is not your amigo. Right? Always do your best and let God do the rest. Always, if you're in the market for a new vehicle or truck, Stop by Joey Cardi Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. They will hook you up. Talk to my man Dean, and tell them I sent you. That's very important, right? They'll hook you up with a good deal. Support our friends at Papa's Raw Bar. Eat, drink, and be local. And don't ever forget that no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we are always connected by water. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming today.
Yep. Thank you for the Empire.